Hey guys, welcome back to
Get Stoked!
It's your boy Trent.
Evan.
And Ty.
On this week's episode, we're delving into folklore from the deepest homes and the creepiest parts of the internet.
All right. So Trenton, how do you feel? You're an official member of the podcast now.
Yeah, somehow I got roped in this thing completely now.
Yeah, now you're stuck in it for the rest of your life. So
You're dragging me down
one of
with
us.
you.
One of us. One of us.
Oh no.
Okay. So
Hopefully
anyway,
I can drag someone else on here.
we have something we'd like to address before we get started this week. I'll let Ty handle that.
Yeah, so after doing a little bit of research and a couple of podcasters that we're aware of getting in trouble for reading off of various subreddits, we decided that it might be in the best interest of our podcast to move in other directions and explore the internet rather than just Reddit, as some of that is protected through certain copyright laws and stuff, and we don't want to make anyone upset, so here we are.
Yeah, we know our loyal fans wouldn't try and copy claim us.
Oh,
Shout
four
out
of
to
you.
Ty's mom. And my mom.
And my
Evan's
mom. Just kidding. My mom hasn't watched it yet.
Oh, just wait.
Oh. Okay, so what are we talking? So let's go first. I think I'm more interested to hear Trenton's first, so I want to let him go first.
My first.
I
are
feel
a
like Japanese
folklore master. So.
I wouldn't go that
Yeah,
far.
yeah.
As a folklore master, I'm just interested in it.
I just know the ones that you've, like, if you're looking at specifically Japanese ones, those always seem to be the most crazy and interesting ones.
Yeah, because they're so different than what we're used to.
Yeah.
Like, you would think a Japanese person looks at our folklore and they're like, what's wrong with
I know,
that?
ours
We're
is so
crazy.
basic. It's like, oh, some
Well, it's
person just
basic.
gets murdered.
We're basic because we're used to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're Japanese, you're like, this dumb shit folklore. I'm going to go see that awesome European. But this one should hit home with us. I remember hearing this. As you know, train tracks right outside there.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to talk
Okay.
about the story of Teke Teke.
Teke.
Teke Teke was a schoolgirl who tripped on train tracks right when a train was coming by, and she got cut in half completely.
Nice.
Now, the legend is that...
Half teke. So you say it twice?
No.
For each
No.
of her halves?
Okay.
No, I'll tell you why she's called Teke
Okay,
Teke.
okay.
She carries around a scythe with her now, her body. And the reason why she's called Teke Teke is because that's the sound her fingers make while she's crawling across
Oh,
the
I think I've
ground.
heard about this one. Yeah.
No.
She's most often seen hiding in places where you can't see the lower half of her body. And as the legend goes, if she catches you and sees you, she'll cut you in half with a scythe to make you resemble her. You see these a lot in Japanese folklore for whatever reason. Like there's one of the slit-mouthed woman,
Oh, yeah, that was
Yeah.
scary.
a cut that goes along her mouth, and that she wears a mask and walks up to kids and stuff like that, takes off the mask, says, "Am I beautiful?" Anything you say, she'll cut you the same way.
So you're not supposed to say anything? Or
No.
you lose no matter what?
Apparently, you can like trick her out if you like
A vibe check.
give her like throw something at her or something like
Okay.
that, and then run away as fast.
Hey,
as you can.
look!
You can't run away from Teke Teke though.
Oh,
She
oh,
doesn't
of course
have
not.
any legs, but she's a Usain Bolt, the
Does she-
paraplegic girl.
She'll, like,
Like,
pick
is there like a rule to her? Because I know like a lot of these folklore things, it's like, oh, they exist to punish children, or like they only will hurt you if you go off a trail. Like, are there rules to her, or does she just fuck with whoever she wants?
Don't
Teke
masturbate.
Teke or the slim mouth?
Teke.
No, Teke Teke seems to just be like, hey, I'm gonna fuck you up.
That's more terrifying than the rest of them.
Yeah, because
It might be like, don't hang around train tracks, but
That's
like
pretty-
she just kills you either
Yeah.
way. Like even if you're not near train tracks, she'll. Just,
I mean, how do you want to die? I mean, if you're just standing on train tracks waiting to die anyway, you want to get scythed in half or just hit by a train?
I think that's funny
I'd
though.
rather get hit by a train.
if they're using because a lot of, like you said, actually last episode you said, a lot of folklore is just like cautionary tales. Like, they had the cautionary tale of a girl getting cut in half, and then somebody was like, let's also just scare the shit out of people
Yeah, I know.
and have her cut people in half.
Fear is the strongest emotion.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, I mean, hey, if you want your kids to stay away from the train tracks, you're not going to tell them, hey, you'll get hit by a train. Just be like, hey, this half lady's going to come at you with a scythe if you go near the fucking train tracks.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think for doing mainly horror type folklore, which is fine. It's the season. But it's also important to note that there's so many other types of folklore out there besides just horror.
I may have one or two nice ones.
From the title, 16 Tales to Keep You Up at Night. I don't think so.
No, 16 Eastern European myths and legends to keep you up. Oh, to keep you up at night. There are some cute little things that exist. Like sometimes they'll hurt you, and sometimes they just are friendly.
Yeah,
that's something that I've noticed that was common in a lot of the Eastern folklore.
That's something I found super interesting about Japanese folklore, is that inanimate objects have their own soul. So if you have a book or something, it's the soul that's responsible for getting the enjoyment from that object. So whenever you get rid of something, you have to say, basically pay your respects. You say thank you, you bow to it, and then it's like sending it on its way, giving it peace in life because it gave you peace.
How many people do you think actually like follow that kind of like logic in Japan? Is it like a commonly accepted thing, or do you think it's very select based on what you're dealing with?
Now it's select. I think maybe back in like feudal Japan and stuff like that, it would have been much more widespread just because, everything was believed to have inherent spirituality back in those days because you couldn't really explain things, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, probably not as much now. I just think it's a nice thought to think about, like kind of mystifying to think that everything around you has its own soul and its own spirit that's giving you happiness.
Well, there are a lot of cultures, too, that kind of like everything's got a spirit of some sort,
Yeah.
It's pretty common among different religions, too, like... So, but yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's something that unfortunately we're missing in today's like modern society is we have a very like we're just a wasteful. We have a wasteful mindset.
I've noticed that. I feel like traditionalism of like holding like we used to have traditions for Christmas every year, and I just feel like those are starting to fade away now. And it could be because like my siblings are getting older or whatever. But I feel like with the rise in technology, that like we're losing that personal connection of like keeping up with traditions and stuff.
It's weird because tying it back to the whole Japanese belief, we're losing that with everyday things, but technology is getting more and more to having its own soul in a way, like with AI and stuff like that. Soon it's going to be not like a belief, but it's an actual practically a human living in there, just thinking for itself and acting by itself, just in an inanimate object.
Leaving some foreshadowing for next week. I like what you're doing here. But anyway, so let's get into a myth here. So,
where does this come from?
What?
Oh, I thought you were getting.
No, I thought you were going to get into one. Because you started, but I guess you technically did go into one.
Yeah,
so,
I went into two.
All right, so I guess I'll talk about one. Let's talk about Slenderman because we're gonna start. I want to start with a more modern,
like an urban myth.
Not really not really a legend, so to sort, but it's an urban myth.
Actually, I wouldn't say that. There was the police case of two girls who stabbed.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into. That's exactly what I'm going to get into. So
it's so bizarre. Get into it.
So if people don't know what Slenderman is, because I don't know, not everybody does, but anyway, it started as
might not know.
I started as a creepypasta, and I'm not too
explain what a creepypasta is.
Friend, I'm gonna let you explain what a creepypasta. I don't quite understand what a creepypasta is, but
creepypasta. It sounds bizarre, especially the reference to noodles in there. But it comes from the term copypasta, which on the internet is any like form of text. It's kind of like a text form meme that is just copied around rapidly, usually because it's funny. So like a very popular one is the Navy SEAL one. Like, I'll let you know I graduated at the top of my class of Navy SEALs and stuff like that. Creepypasta is exactly the same thing, except it's more of a horror tone. So anything that's meant to creep people out that is particularly creepy, at least in some way, it's actually usually more images like Smile Dog. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. Jeff the Killer. Even Slenderman started as an image. That was on a Photoshop competition.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where it came from. And then, some guy decided, hey, I want to make a game out of this. And it's a fun game. I'll give it that. They've made a couple renditions now. I don't know what the most recent one is, but they're fun. They're just a spooky, like, make you shit yourself kind of game. But anyway, so these two girls kind of got like, these little girls got like obsessed with it. They were like 12, 13-year-old girls. And they had this friend, and I guess they decided to take her out into the woods in Wisconsin and stab her 12 times. 12 times out in the woods, and then they left her there. 19 times out in the woods, and then they left her there to die. Somehow, she managed to crawl out of the woods and get help from a cyclist. But these girls did this for Slenderman, and they apparently she got 25 years in a mental institution for doing it. But they did this for Slenderman. Like they believe that he wanted her to take this girl out here and like murder her like in his name or
It
whatever.
was something for like protection for their families or something.
Yeah.
Like they believe that
Oh,
Slenderman was
wow.
watching them.
Yeah.
And like,
But like,
shit.
where do they get this? Like, where do you get this kind of stuff? Like, where do you get this idea in your head? Like that this thing that doesn't even exist. Like we're talking about things that have potential to exist, but this is a thing that originated from a Photoshop competition. And these little girls, and I wouldn't even call them little. I'd say they're 12, 13.
They're old enough to understand.
Yeah.
what's
Oh yeah.
happening.
Oh yeah. They're especially in an age where young people have a general sense of awareness of what's real and fake
Yeah.
on the internet. They absolutely know that that's.
And
not
at that
real.
point, I'm pretty sure it was a game too, because this was in
I'm relatively certain
20
they would have the wherewithal to
2014.
understand that. Yeah.
So by then it was
Yeah.
definitely a game.
So would you think that it was more of a defense? Like
I don't know.
we stabbed her 19 times because of the internet.
I genuinely think that it started off as like maybe something they were joking about, but then slowly snowballed into something where they actually started to believe it. Like if they actually do have mental problems, which they might, they probably do.
Yeah, they got admitted to 25 years in a mental institution.
Yeah, but how do you not look at that and go, those people are fucking crazy?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm. I guess the fear and the paranoia just builds and builds and builds.
Yeah, I guess like particularly there are a lot of ones, like a lot of YouTube shorts and stuff like that. And this is by no means blaming anyone involved in any production of Slenderman content, because there's, for all they knew, it was something to entertain people by scaring them.
So what it says is they said that they wanted to prove their loyalty to him so they could become his proxies, prove his existence, and prevent him from hurting their family. So you're right. They did it out of protection, but also to prove their loyalty. And they believe that the only way to do this would be to kill someone. And this sounds like kind of how like the last week we talked about our ghost stuff. Like, you know how you see ghosts, like you have to kill this man or whatever. And it's like, this shit is crazy. Like, I mean, we're talking about like these girls had like nobody was talking unless they got onto some online forum. Nobody was talking directly to them. They genuinely just believed this.
They had to superimpose some level of belief onto it. Yeah.
And apparently they thought they would become servants of Slenderman and live in his mansion, which they thought was located in the Nicollet National Forest. What the fuck? Where did they
mansion?
go? A mansion? Where did these? Because I've read the Slenderman creepypasta. There's no mention of
mansions or anything like that.
What the hell? But they like planned this too. Like it was planned. They wanted to go out there and attack this girl so they could for this, and it's fucked because this girl was their friend. But I find it interesting to see how something from the internet just became like an almost a legend to them.
Yeah, I mean it did. It became real, not even a legend. It's fascinating how that simple image somehow spread its way. And I don't know why you look at something like that's a video game and you go, that's real.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not helping the case that video games don't cause violence there.
You know, they went on YouTube and they like looked up Markiplier or something like that, and they saw him playing Slenderman, and they were like, "Oh my god, this guy must be real." It's like,
but you gotta imagine they're 12, so like even 12-year-olds would be like, "This is just a game."
Yeah, there's definitely some mental gymnastics going on in these people's heads. Okay, they're doing 360 somersaults.
What I think is craziest is to like in a couple of decades, people are gonna look back and believe that he was some sort of legend because of stories like this, and it's crazy to think that like internet shit like this is going to become some sort of urban legend that like.
See, I think that's, although as crazy as it seems now, I think that's also how legends form throughout history.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, all of these things have an event that sparked something, and from that like initial event, misinformation and contortion of the narrative to form a more thrilling story causes folklore.
Yeah.
But you're also looking at we're at the times of the internet now, so I think back then it's more, I don't want to say feasible for these things to be true, but like human perception at the time is I see this, I heard it, I experienced it. So yeah, they might have bent the truth a little bit, but you're more likely to believe actual human accounts when you don't have the internet and shit to continue.
Yeah. How are you going to prove someone wrong what they're telling you if you can't research it at all?
Yeah.
Like if at most you have is a library, maybe. I mean, most people couldn't even read.
Yeah,
whenever folklore
and you
started.
got to count in the multiple accounts of people seeing this kind of
Mhm.
stuff too. So it's like, one guy might see it, but then if this guy doesn't know that somebody's seen it, and another guy says it, well, you can't say, oh, well, they're only spreading this because they want attention. It's more like, all right, these are two separate accounts. Then there's got to be some validity to what's going on there if multiple people are experiencing this thing. And
Yeah.
so, but I know you said you wanted to talk about creepypastas for a little bit, so I'll let you get into that if you want.
Yeah, it's the new form of folklore, or at least particularly horror folklore on the internet. Because things like the Rake, which
We'll get into later.
the Rake, Slenderman, Jeff the Killer, Smile Dog, stuff like that. They all started on the internet as forms of creepypasta, and now you have people literally killing or attempting to kill each other
Mhm.
because of it. And it's weird because creepypastas don't have the inherent thing that folklore has, which is it's usually to protect people from
Yeah.
things. Slenderman was just made to creep people out.
Mhm.
And now it's snowballed into not only urban legend and attempted murder, but it's also like blockbuster movie too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
I wouldn't
it's
call
not-
it a blockbuster.
It was made by Sony. I mean,
Did they do well? I never saw it.
no, I don't think it did well. I meant blockbuster as
Wow.
big corporation.
Yeah.
Like just paying fuck tons of money for the rights of an image so they can make a 3-hour long movie about it.
Yeah, well, they made a documentary about on that. I know there's a documentary on Netflix about these girls and like that they like I said, it's I think it's a mentally there's a lot of mental issues to go into play with that story, but it's definitely interesting to see what people will genuinely believe in based on what they read or see. So, and I think that's the whole point of folklore is you can choose to believe it regardless, but like I feel like this story is a little bit different because it started on the internet.
I'm actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if in years to come the story of Slenderman and these three girls might become a cautionary tale about the importance of mental health and recognizing mental health issues.
Yeah.
And the interaction between that and the internet, and like that might be our modern rendition of a cautionary folklore.
Yeah.
I want you guys to picture a scene here. Somehow, some way, life as we know is destroyed, right?
Mhm.
But there's still humans out there, and they come across a hard drive with an article about the stabbings. Do you think they go, oh, this was two mentally ill kids? Or do they go, oh, wow, it must have been crazy back then whenever like tall, pale-faced people were running around the woods?
Yeah.
I think absolutely that. The second
It's
one.
hard to gauge kind of because we don't know where what we're gonna believe in that amount of time. I mean, we believe in these folklore. We can believe in these folklore stories that we're gonna get into that aren't like internet based because it's like these were real people had real accounts, but it's like I don't know. I see what you mean, but it depends. It probably has to be really far into the future.
Let me pose you a contrarian question. Those girls' accounts that stabbed this little girl, are they not real?
That's true.
They were real to them, apparently, unless they're just legitimately insane and they couldn't think of a better excuse, which might be the case. We don't know what's going on.
It's going to go back down to what Ty said earlier about these things are going to get like construed and like distorted throughout as they move through history. So
Yeah.
maybe at some point that part of which it starts on the internet completely falls out of the equation.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh shit, Slenderman is fucking real.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends.
I'm interested to see
the development.
And I mean, it won't develop very far in our short lifetime, but I'm sure you'll see small parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw it. I mean, Slenderman was started at the beginning of like 2000s, the early 2000s, I want to say. And that was in 2014, a decade
14
later.
years.
Yeah.
A crime
Was committed for something that's based off a picture, that's based off a video game.
Yeah.
Or a video game that's based off a picture.
I mean, what's the change that like? So what when we look at something like that, what is the difference between something that happens that they do out of a video game and someone who goes and kills a bunch of people in the name of a religion?
Oh,
I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah,
we don't know if whatever religion they're basing their murder off of is to be true, but they still do it because it's what they believe.
Yeah, they believe it to be true.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting
It is an interesting question to bring up. Yeah.
Is there a difference or?
I don't.
No.
I mean,
Well,
Yeah, it's hard to consider.
I think it comes back to perception. Like, let's take a look at this. It's blue, right?
Yeah.
It's a blue dice. What I'm seeing could be completely different from what you're seeing, but to both of us, it's still blue.
Yeah.
We don't know because we can't see
mhm.
Through their eyes. Yeah.
So these girls and these fanatics, they might genuinely like be seeing Slenderman because your mind plays tricks on you.
Oh,
You
yeah.
expect to
Especially when
see
you're
something there. Yeah.
When you're young, you're not developed yet. So
Yeah, like you can be walking past a creepy house and be like, I'm going to see someone in that window. And suddenly there's a face there for a split second.
yeah.
And some people just lack the, not the fortitude, I would say, but the insight to be like, yeah, that wasn't real. Like something must be, like, for example, where I work, there's a legend that one theater's haunted.
Yeah.
It's like a little folklore legend. I was in there alone. We can't turn the lights on because they're broken. Cleaning up a spill because PG-13 horror movies just make a mess of the place. And the legend is that a tall man, much like Slenderman, but not like has tentacles or anything like that, like just stands in the corner because he had a heart attack there, right? Every time I go in there, I shit my pants because I'm like, I know this isn't real or probably isn't real, but I still feel this oppressive, like looming darkness. And I always see like something out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
So I'm cleaning the spill and I look up to where, because this is what I do. I instantly look up to where people have said they've seen them because that's just what my brain does.
Yeah.
And for a second, I think I see something there. And last night it was so strong that I was just like, fuck this spill. I'm just getting up and leaving. But I know it wasn't actually there, but my brain just kicked into like, hey, get out of there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But this is deliberate. This is planned. It's so bizarre to look at these people and be like, not only did they think they saw something, they thought they communicated with it and they thought they could please it. And they planned out a horrific act to try and do all those things.
See, what I want
Folklore is really powerful.
What I want to know is who they spoke to, or is this just like some?
I don't think they spoke to anybody. I think it's a snowball of paranoia.
Yeah.
Like you fear the being, and then you think, okay, what does the being want? And then you think, is the being coming after me? And of course, we're self-centered by nature, so you assume, yes, it's going to come after me. What does it want? What does it desire? If I do something for it, am I safe? Am I loyal to it? There are jumps that have to be made, but I can see the train of thought. Could I follow it? No.
Yeah.
But like,
No.
you can see it kind of unfold.
Yeah.
Folklore and now creepypasta and things on the internet. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't give it credit for how strong it actually is. I mean, humans are story-based creatures.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we sit around campfires and we tell each other spooky tales.
Yeah.
Because not only is it fun, but it also teaches you some things about yourself and other people.
And you notice that a lot of folklore has some sort of theme or lesson to be learned at the end. Like, but it just depends on which one you're looking at. So
yeah, a lot of the creepypastas don't have that, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. I think what Ty was saying, a little bit, not a little bit, but maybe a couple decades from now, whenever we're way older, we'll hear about Slenderman again. But the girls will not become separate from Slenderman. They'll become entwined with Slenderman.
Yeah.
Whether it's Slenderman's real and this is proof because two girls said they saw him, like tried to sacrifice someone for it, or that Slenderman was just so powerful that two people believed. A picture, that's so crazy to me. A picture on the internet inspired two young kids, two developing people to try and kill another person.
Their friend, no less. Okay.
Let's hop into a different one.
Okay.
I think we're getting a little sidetracked here.
Hey, Ty.
Yeah.
Eastern European.
Yeah.
Eastern
Hit
European.
us up
Okay,
with
so
one.
the reason I like the Eastern European ones, I think, to me, they seem quaint. Like, and I just like the Eastern European ones because yes, sometimes they involve mutilation, but this comes
sometimes.
But this comes from a time where it was much more these kind of align more with like the classic folky stories that we're used to.
Like Dracula.
Well, okay, actually that's funny. I wasn't going to go into this, but there's something called the Strigoi.
Never heard of it.
They are essentially like ogre-like vampires, and boy, oh boy, are they interesting. I mean, there's also vampires in folklore, but these guys in particular seem like ghoulish in a way.
Yeah.
My mind immediately went to Shrek.
Yeah, totally. No, but like the thing that I found interesting when I was looking up these is that there have been sightings as recently as 2004.
Ooh.
She claimed to have been visited by, like, this one girl said she was visited by one. It took the form of her deceased uncle because, of course, they can shapeshift.
Of course. Why not? Let's make them even more dangerous.
So what their family did was they dug up the guy's grave, cut his heart out, stabbed it with a stake, and burned the body.
Wasn't there weird shit about that too? Like his eyes were open.
Oh, fuck.
And he was. I remember hearing about this, and this was like the we got him
cool.
moment because his eyes were open and it looked like he wasn't decaying.
No.
I don't like that at all.
But the one that I did want to get into, particularly because I find it so interesting. Also, she, as of what they know right now, doesn't have a counterpart in any other part of the world in folklore. Like a lot of these, what you'll see, like an example is La Lorena, the woman in white.
La Llorona.
Sorry.
Yeah. Trust me, I asked my girlfriend a couple of times.
La Llorona?
La Llorona, because when there's two L's, it's like a J sound. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there are women in white.
Yeah.
Throughout the world,
which I want to get. Yeah, I'll get into later.
But Baba Yaga
here we go.
is
the boogeyman,
also known as the boogeyman. Well, yeah.
Well, that's what they call it in John Wick.
She's the classic witch in the forest character, but like, I don't know how they came up with this, but so she's like a classic witch, but she flies around in a bucket. And I know.
How big is the bucket?
It's okay. Here's a picture. So like, there's the bucket that she's flying.
Wow, that's a long bucket.
It's a big bucket.
That's not a bucket, man. That's a cylinder.
So it's a bucket.
That's
and she carries with her a broom, but she doesn't fly in the broom. The broom is to sweep up her tracks. So if you ever try to hunt her down, you can't find her.
But she's flying. How is she?
She goes down because Baba Yaga's MO is that she typically will take children and boil them in a pot, like the typical the witch story. Baba Yaga's house, apparently also in this folklore, is a small hut on chicken legs, giant chicken legs.
What?
Yes, with the head of a rooster. And it walks around, and it's surrounded by a fence of human bones.
See, this is where you get into how like where did the people get this? This is
so creative.
Yeah, it's like it goes from like, all right, I could believe in that to okay, what the fuck is happening?
But this is why I love the Eastern European ones. And when we were talked about doing this, I was like, I know that I want to look into this because they're so like colorful and out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other ones I've looked at from other cultures are very dark and grim.
Yeah.
So keeping the lightness of it. She also apparently is pretty like neutral. So I mean, unless you're a kid, I guess, and she's hungry. But like,
I guess children are just tastier and
like they said, she's equally as likely to take away your only option of survival if you're lost in the woods, or like spin you around and point you in the right direction, because she's just this like force of nature, really.
Yeah.
And
completely
I'm pretty
neutral.
sure. Yeah, I'm pretty
Where
sure.
Where would you put
children,
her on the chaotic spectrum?
Definitely.
Lawful evil.
Chaotic neutral.
Chaotic neutral.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
respectable.
with a little twinge for child eating.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with child eating.
Yeah, that was I like Baba Yaga the most. But yeah, every source that you look up is like, she has no counterpart, and I'm like, yeah, it'd be weird to have a counterpart.
I mean,
giant hut with legs.
You've heard of like the Hansel and Gretel story too, so that's kind of like similar in a way.
And I can't say for sure, but it seems to me as though Baba Yaga is like this overarching, like, original character.
Where does she work?
And then the concept of witches, she's Slavic in nature. But like, it seems like the original character kind of inspired the other witch-eating children stories and whatnot.
So
these what's important about folklore too is that it actually does have a major effect on the cultures it's in.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Switzerland, the legend around this place was that there was a dragon there, right? And they built a giant metal sculpture on a dragon that overlooked the lake.
That's awesome.
And there was a witch in the woods too, because of course, in every European woods, there's a witch, and in every European mountain, there's a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually very funny. My girlfriend and I know she might be out there. We were walking up to a waterfall, and it was raining out, and there was like, oh, that's where the witch lives. And she was like, oh, I want to see inside. Or I was like, I want to see inside. She goes, okay. She opens the door. There's a mannequin of the witch staring
Fuck
at her.
Oh my god,
She
that's
nearly
so
had a
funny.
heart attack because it was so funny.
Oh,
But
that's great.
it has such a pull on these cultures.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Um,
Well, then there's a lot of association now too that derives like, witches with the broom, like from like say you take Baba Yaga as like the origins of like your witch kind of stories. Well, now it turns into cast spells, rides a broom. It's
Yeah.
crazy to see how these stories have like for us at least have like Americanized, I guess, in a sense. Like we're not even Americanized, but just like modernized into like either for kids or just something more like I don't know. I mean, what's more realistic to you, riding around on a broom or riding in a barrel?
I like the bucket more.
I do like the
The
bucket.
bucket.
Yeah,
I think it's
funny.
great.
it is pretty good.
Oh, now I.
Don't get me wrong, though. If she came up to me, I'd shit my pants. Even if bucket or no bucket,
Yeah.
poo
for
in my
sure.
trousers. But no, it's still a funny sight to think about.
Oh yeah. So I think we should. I know this is a bit early, but I think we should take a quick break. We got to go grab some dinner because
Yes.
we're recording this around dinner time. But we'll be back with more folklore. And
We have terrible planning skills.
yeah,
So
yeah.
do.
High five.
Woo!
All
That's
right.
going to sound horrible.
Yep. All right. So we'll catch you guys in a little bit. All right, that was pretty good. Pretty good dinners.
Good break.
Let's jump back into it. I'm fulfilled and ready to get back into this.
Yeah.
All right.
Evan, you had something you wanted to.
So I'm gonna say this right now. We're gonna talk about La Llorona.
You already fucked it up.
La Llorona.
You already fucked it up.
I know. I know. My
Try
girlfriend.
it one more time. Try it one more time.
La Llorona.
We're
Right.
gonna have to
Lingerie?
get
The weeping woman is essentially what this is. So,
woman in white.
no,
Right?
well,
No,
no,
This
they're,
isn't the woman in white.
No, they're
there's a
separate.
different one.
I mean, they're kind of the same.
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah,
usually
sorry.
she's depicted wearing white, but
There's so many women wearing white,
yeah,
though,
it's-
Ty, that you
it's-
can't really say.
No, weddings. Man.
But anyway, a Mexican woman, I don't even know how to say her name, attempted to kill her 7 children by throwing them into the Buffalo Bayou in Houston, Texas in 1986. A victim of domestic violence, she was apparently trying to end her suffering and that of her children. 2 of them who died. During an interview, this woman declared that she was a La Llorona. Apparently, what she is a legendary figure with various incarnations, usually translated into English as the Wailing Woman. She is often presented as a banshee type, an apparition of a woman dressed in white, often found by lakes or rivers, sometimes at crossroad, who cries into the night for her lost children whom she killed. The infanticide is sometimes carried out with a knife or dagger, but very often the children have been drowned. And that's how I know the movie depicted it. Her crime is usually committed in a fit of madness after having found out her husband was an unfaithful lover. So, so essentially it's the crying woman who mourns the death of her children.
And takes other children.
Is
along with
it also like a cautionary tale of infidelity? I guess.
I guess.
Toward the husband, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so. She's like a lost soul doomed to wander the earth forever for what she did. It says that like the origins of this are uncertain, but it's mainly like Spanish. But because I guess this woman just claimed that she was or whatever, but apparently it also goes back to like Aztec times too. So it's hard to like depict where this really came from, but it's an interesting legend to me because I've seen like a couple cases of like people who've like been like in near and abandoned places and just heard random crying throughout the night. Like I watched a video of this guy was in this like this not this abandoned warehouse, but he was like working and he worked in like this big construction site and he heard like wailing come across from like the other room or whatever. So it's kind of creepy. Like just imagine in the middle of the night you're either working or whatever, you just hear this crying.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
What I like about this folklore is that at the end of the day, it's a person and not some mythical being.
Yeah.
And it also like it stems from grief. Like
Yeah.
her existence is her punishment.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
not like she doesn't like gain power.
I think she realizes too in the legend that she knows what she did wrong,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and that's why like she wanders around trying to find the souls of her children. So that's, I think, why she takes other children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And through by finding those souls, she can, pass on to whatever lies beyond in this tale.
But yeah, there's also like so it says here she's been linked to the woman in white, which again another really interesting story too. It's like it's a story of like infidelity and murder of the children. So I watched there's this show on Netflix called Haunted, and it's like these real life accounts of people talking about like different, and there's a bunch of different ones. I've only watched the first episode because I wanted to be scared, and it wasn't really scaring me that much. So I was like, we'll finish the first episode, and we'll watch something actually scary. But it was ironically enough, it helped me lead into my research because this guy talked about his confrontation with a woman in white. So they moved him. So apparently, interestingly enough, he was in this town and he watched some guy pull out an axe and murder somebody. And then this guy tries to get into like this restaurant they were at, and they were like all trying to hold the door. So they decided to move, and they moved into this apartment where a woman had just murdered her 2 children in the bathtub, but this wasn't disclosed to them. So this kid starts seeing this woman hanging in her closet every night for like 6 years. He sees this, and his parents don't believe him because that's how it fucking works. Nobody believes their kids anymore. And let me just put this out there: when my kids start to see spooky shit, I'm not gonna be like, "Oh, it's just your imagination." Like, fuck that.
Get out.
I've seen too many horror movies. I get how it works. If you're seeing shit and you're 100% sure you're seeing it, we're leaving.
Grab the pre-prepared go bag.
Yeah, and just
we've
leave.
We've been waiting. We've been using this, and get out. We planned for this.
But just have numerous like religious artifacts that you can just throw like at its direction. Hopefully, sway it.
The fire retardant sprinklers at the top. Those are filled with holy water.
Oh yeah.
It's just.
So anyway, so he sees this girl in his dreams every night. That is terrifying.
That was scary.
That is fucking terrifying.
Guys, I think the woman in white.
Hey, stop trying to spook us for having a discussion here. But anyway, so he goes on to talk about how like for 6 years he sees this girl in his sleep, and eventually they move. Or I think they moved because like it just got to a point where he couldn't take it anymore. Or I don't know if they moved or what, but he might not have moved. But I think that he stayed with a friend for a while. And anyway, he comes home. He's with his friend. He goes back to his friend's house, and his mom is just sitting there staring at the blank TV, like dead face. And she looks at him and goes, "You must die." So then this kid's riding his bike, and he gets hit by a car, and he survives it. But because she attempted to kill him, because he saw her while he's riding his bike, and it distracted him. He went out in the traffic, got hit by a car. He's fine. And then, like I guess a week or two later, he's at a movie theater and he has a heart attack and drops dead and dies. So like I guess he believes that like, oh, she accomplished her goal. He's dead. But so he's an adult now when he's telling this story, and he says he started seeing her again, and he's afraid that like he's not sure whether his days are limited or not, but. It's fucking terrifying.
That is terrifying.
To know that it's coming after you because it realized that it didn't kill you. And like a lot of people tend to associate like with spirits that like, oh, they're attached to the house. But sometimes like, and a lot of like stories you hear, like these ghosts will attach themselves to the people when somebody moves in. But then when they moved out, they're like, wow, I'm surprised you lasted that long. Like not that long ago, like when you guys first moved in here, I was cleaning up. I had to clean up the blood and shit. And like, it's just scary shit.
It's fascinating, all the women in white stories, because while it may be overlooked as just something trying to be spooky, white is very significant in any of the stories. It's usually like either if it's infidelity, it's like a wedding dress.
Yeah. Yep.
And white in general is just a symbol of purity.
Yeah.
Like if something's wearing white, it's not corrupt, it's innocent. So just adding that extra layer of like, this thing is wearing white. It's supposed to be pure. It's in a way mocking angels, and then it comes after you.
Well, a show I watched a while ago was called Supernatural. They did an episode on the women in white, and their take was that it's a little different, but like she would try to trick people into being infertile with her, or like to cheat on their spouses, and she would take. Shut up. You know what I mean? Yes. I messed up there, but anyway, so she would. Try to get them to take her back to her house, and if they took her back, she would murder them. And so it was like testing your fate. Like
I like that.
But what Trent says about the being pure, it's like you see someone dressed in white, it's like, okay, yeah, like they need help, like, and it's just like, you don't think they're going to do anything because you get that sense of relief when you see them dressed like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the women in white goes across all cultures.
Yeah.
It's like inscribed in every single like folklore history.
Mm-hmm.
Just spirits in general, which I think is why ghosts are still so prevalent today, is because they're often the most prevalent in folklore as well.
Yeah.
Like one from England that I really think is horrifying. It's called the Spirit of the Moor. So a moor is like kind of this dead, barren place in the middle of England. And whenever you go there, a spirit is said to attach itself to you. And it slowly like just deteriorates your mind to a point where all you can think about is going back to the moor. And then once you go back to the moor, you're exhausted, you haven't been eating anything or anything like that. And then while you're collapsing on the ground, like dying, the spirit's like, okay, now I'm going to drag you to hell. And it just rips you into the moor to just die.
I stumbled upon that while I was researching this, and the way that they described it too was terrifying, is that it doesn't have a corporeal form and it doesn't really have a physical form, but yet they talked a lot about it showing its face, and it said that like as it would slowly kind of incept your mind, it would start projecting its own face onto people while you talk to them. And like freak you out, and the last thing that you see as you're laying there dying, unable to move, is that it will just basically stand over you with its face and just watch you die, which fucking irks me.
Yeah, but you're right.
That's such a cool one.
It's really cool to see that like a lot of these stories, especially with the women of white, like transcend cultures all throughout the world. So that there's, again, it goes back to that. Does that add validity to it, knowing that so many cultures have adapted their own take on it, or is it just like a story that's passed along so much that it's just changed and morphed everywhere?
And it's always one of those things too where you think how many cultures believe in it makes it valid, right?
Yeah, it gives it validity. Yeah.
Like there's so many if it spans literally the entire globe, is it just people like meeting each other and talking about it and somehow it became that way? Because back in the day, we weren't really into talking about each other, talking to each other. I mean, but to still have that there is fascinating.
To me, it kind of seems like if you look at mythology and all of these multiple polytheistic religions, you see a lot of similar tropes as they try to categorize the world around them in a world that seems as though it cannot be understood. So an example is I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but Perun is an Eastern European. They consider him folklore, but he was once a god to certain peoples there, and he was like a god of thunder. And he aligns.
Like Thor?
Yeah, he aligns very closely to the concept of Thor, but also very closely to the concept of Zeus. And if you look in a lot of other polytheistic religions that we now consider mythology, you'll see those tropes. Like there's always like a god of war or aggression. There's almost always a god of the ocean. There's almost always a god of the sky or thunder.
Right.
When like they always have an explanation, a story of origin for almost everything. And I wonder if that is part of the reason why we see folklore kind of transcend, is because maybe people like the women in white kind of represent their early conception of karma and infidelity.
Yeah.
And it's like or what am I thinking of?
We got like really deep
infanticide. Like it's like they couldn't comprehend how somebody can do, one, cheat on their spouse, and two, how can you commit an infanticide? And so it was difficult to kind of say like, how are these people going to get got?
Yeah.
And so this woman in white is like their version of something will take care of you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we talked about how like a lot of folklore has some sort of message, and like a lot of like spirits. Like we touched a lot on that last episode, but there's some sort of punishment that's attempted to be dealt out. So that's, I think, a lot what you see with this one. But I think we should get into some of the more unique and interesting ones that don't necessarily transcribe different cultures, but let's get into some individual ones.
One thing I wanted to tack on
Yes.
to that part is that there's often so many not describing something, but just exploring how humans feel about certain things. Like there's one from Japanese folklore that's called The Girl in the Gap. So if you look at like a gap between two pieces of furniture, there's said to be sometimes you can see a girl looking at you through the gap, right? And she asks you if you want to play hide and seek.
I think I've heard this.
And if you say yes, it doesn't matter. Even if you say no, you're locked into the game.
Yo, what is up with these fucking?
Yeah, I was gonna say all the Japanese
one.
things. They ask you a question, but it's a fucking rhetorical question. Doesn't matter. You're fucked.
And they also love to be like, if you hear this, you're fucked.
Fuck.
But anyway, she asks you if you want to play or not, and you can't say yes or no. But the idea of it is that if you look into the gap again, she's gonna grab you and drag you into the gap and down to hell. And I feel like that is not so much just like a spooky story someone made up. I feel like that's a common thing that people will feel when looking into
dragged into hell.
No, like looking into those spaces. Like
something's there.
From my spot right now, I can see under the threshold of a door, and I can absolutely see how creepy it is to imagine
a face.
Like, and people always imagine like I always
like
look
eyes.
under doors for feet.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Yeah, for sure.
Footsteps.
Yeah.
What was so getting back to like the Japanese ones? What was that one you told me about last year? The one that like would follow you from a distance, or like
the bathtub
game, the bathtub thing. Yes, please let's go over that because that one spooked the shit out of me.
All right, so
I feel like we're getting back into spooky shit again, but it's October and we're gonna get into more.
Folklore.
Yeah, we're gonna get into different folklore that isn't necessarily ghosts or spirits. But please hop into that one because that one's good.
I'm struggling on the name. I can't remember. It's weird and foreign. So
it's the not supposed to know it because if you say it or something.
No, this one you actually invite onto yourself.
Oh, okay.
I thought there was one like that. Though.
There is one.
Then don't know it.
There's one where if you hear it, you dream about it.
Let's talk about that.
No, Bath Girl.
Bath Girl. So there was a story of a girl who slipped and fell like onto a faucet, a rusty faucet, and it took out her eye. And she died that way. And apparently, much like the Legend of Bloody Mary, you can go into a bathroom, turn to the faucet, like so if you fell, you would go face forward. And then you stand there in the dark while the water's running, and you say her name, and you go, "How did you fall?" and stuff like that. You do this whole ritual basically asking, "How did you fall?" And then the game's kind of on at that point where she will follow you around. She'll stalk you. The whole reason why you're in the bathtub staring that way is because she's said to be behind you whenever you're doing that. And she's always supposed to be right behind you. The whole thing is you don't look at her at all. But if you do look at her, then the same thing happens to you. You lose your eye and everything like that and die in a horrible accident like that. But there is some reward at the end where you get to learn something special or not. Most of those game types you'll find are like, do it if you want some kind of knowledge, but it might kill you.
Are they all
how do you
skewed in the direction of losing?
Yeah.
How do you win that one?
I think you last a week without.
It's like the ring, kind of.
Yeah.
But is she always behind you?
She's always behind you.
So you have to intentionally look behind you with the intent of seeing her. But if I were like facing forward and then due to the circumstances of me existing, I had to turn around and go back.
Always facing.
But how do I? No, but like I had to turn around and start going in this direction. Like I'm walking down this hallway and I'm like, oh, my class is down here. How do I get her behind me?
You have to do a big loop.
Okay.
Yeah, so you always stay facing forward. It's like when you're driving, then you can't.
Imagine someone stalking you from a distance, right? Like they're not glued to your back. So if you turned around, like you went, oh man, my class is there, and you took a small U-turn in a hallway, you would see them.
Okay, I didn't know if it was some supernatural, like she's always behind you. It's just the act of looking.
No,
you know what I mean? Like
she's
physically
a couple feet
there.
behind you. Yeah.
Okay.
At all times, it is supernatural, but she follows you from a distance.
Yeah.
But only when you're in the bathtub, she's right up next to you, and she does whisper to you too.
Hell yeah!
Fuck that.
Naked girls whispering into my ear.
How do you explain like
no eyes?
Never mind.
No eyes. No, go ahead.
That's creepy. Oh, I'm just thinking of the rules of the game here. Like,
do we want to look up the official? Like,
no, I don't want to look up any more than I have to know.
Thanks.
Fuck you guys. Okay, for example, my bed, half of my bed's up against a wall. I typically
turn around in your sleep
facing my room.
Here's the catch.
So
Tomorrow-san.
is she hopping? Don't say your fucking name right now.
Tomorrow-san.
We're not in a bathtub.
We could be. You, me later, bathtub.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But what is she doing? Crawling into bed behind me? Like, I don't get it. Do I just have to close my eyes for like a good while and let her like get behind me and then like we Gucci? Okay, and now I can sleep. Because like when I wake up, is she gonna juke the game and like be standing in front of me and like whoops?
Are you really gonna be able to sleep during the week that you're getting followed by some spirit?
Well, I'm assuming that eventually you're just like, all right, I got a day left. I've done this for 6 fucking days. I'm gonna go to fucking bed. Like, fuck you. I would wrap something around my face. Like I would use a blindfold, but that's just me.
All right. So
I'd blindfold myself for a week.
Yeah, but you still, even if you turn around, you're still technically.
No, you can't look at her.
That's
the
what I
goal.
wanted. Let's look at the. Let's hear the.
it says it's red like green light in a way. Here's what you do.
Okay, don't give the full description.
Right.
We don't want anybody getting fucking cursed here.
But here's creepier. So you stand in the bathtub, watch your hair, close your eyes. Must be dark. You must be naked, obviously, because you're taking a shower.
Hell yeah.
And it's Damara-san fell down. Damara-san fell down. You can't stop repeating this until you finish washing your hair, and then you go to sleep. From then on, the game's on. You'll feel a presence behind you. It is likely that, should you look, you will see nothing. However, glancing over your right shoulder may occasionally reveal a glimpse of her. Her hair will be black and tangled, and she would always be one eye. She will attempt to get closer and closer to you as the days goes on. Should you spot her and find out that she is too close for comfort, shout, Tomor, that is, stop and run away. The idea is to put some distance between her and you. Don't let her catch you. To do this, to get rid of her, you have to like physically catch her with your eyes and look at her. And you shout Kida, which is I cut you loose while swinging your arm down in chopping motion. The game is basically over at that point. This is pretty weird. The ending must be performed before midnight. Failing to do so will grant her permission to enter your dreams. Do not allow her to do this. Additionally, performing the ending is not as easy as it seems. If she suspects that you're about to hide and end the game, you must have her in her sights and then perform the command.
Wow.
We do not recommend you play this game more than once. Okay.
I don't recommend.
I wouldn't play it at all.
Period.
I mean, so it's like you gotta catch me. So
But
you can't.
Red light, green light.
She's trying to catch you, but you're trying to catch her.
No. You're trying to avoid her for a certain amount of time, and then you can be like, leave me alone. I've already passed the threshold. But it's red light, green light, so you got to stop her in her tracks while she's stalking you.
But you can't see her. Like you just feel that presence.
You can't see her unless you glimpse like real quickly.
And if you see her, can you like, bam?
Yeah, you can bam, but you must see her to bam her.
To bam her.
To
Okay.
bam her.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
All right. Looks like we've got a little.
We
bit
can
more
go a
time.
little bit over
Okay.
like an hour 15. It's just because I feel like we've been talking a lot about spirits. I want to get into like Jersey Devil, Goatman, Mothman.
Yeah. Let's do the classics. Let's rock it through the
All right,
classics.
Let's talk about the Jersey Devil. I have this one on my phone. So, fun fact, I used to be terrified of going to New Jersey solely because of the Jersey Devil. I remember one day in class when I was a kid, I read about it and I'm like, fuck that, I never want to go to Jersey.
Really?
And, yeah, and my mom was always talking about...
I don't want to go to Jersey, but for different reasons.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's
I was
because
gonna
Jersey
say.
fucking sucks. No offense, people out there who might be watching. But
Oh, one
it
of
is
you.
the armpit of the United States.
It is.
Wow.
But anyway, my mom used to be like super into that Cake Boss show, which was... Motherfucker.
Stop. That was not right. Okay.
Anyway, she used to be in that Cake Boss show and she always wanted to go, and that place is in New Jersey. And I was like, fuck that, Mom, you can go by yourself. I'm not going.
Yeah.
So anyway,
What is the Jersey Devil? I
hold
know
on.
it has the head of a goat, but like, what's the rest of it?
hold on. Sorry, I had it right.
The intern.
This is our intern Josh.
Oh, that's gonna sound cool.
Gosh, you're throwing it right in front of
Thank
the
you,
mic.
Josh. Thank
All right,
you.
so anyway, the Jersey Devil, also known as the Leeds Devil, is a legendary creature said to inhabit the Pines Barrens of South Jersey. The creature is often described as a flying biped with hooves, but there are many variations. The common description is that of a kangaroo-like, or how do you say that? Wyvern-like creature with a goat or horse-like head, leathery bat-like wings, horns, small arms with clawed hands, legs, and cloven hooves.
Okay.
So I guess it comes from it's a very popular folklore, but The legend states that Mother Leeds had 12 children, and after finding she was pregnant for the 13th time, the cursed the child in frustration, crying that the child would be the devil. During 1735, Mother Leeds was in labor on a stormy night while her friends gathered around her. Born as a natural child, the 13th child changed to a creature with hooves, a goat's head, bat wings, and a forked tail, growling and screaming. So she essentially prayed to the devil, and she got a devil child.
Jesus.
So here's some reported encounters, because I think that's going to be fun. So according to legend, while visiting the Hanover Mill Works to inspect his cannonballs being forged, Commodore Stephen Decatur set a flying creature and fired a cannonball directly upon it to no effect.
That's the most classic example of
What an asshole.
of fucking like human behavior. What's that weird thing?
Shoot it.
With the cannonball.
Fucking blow it to pieces.
So in Greenwich during December 1925, a local farmer shot an unidentified animal as it attempted to steal his chickens.
Something a trend.
And then photographed the corpse. Afterward, he claimed, "I'm thirsty." He claimed that none of the 100 people he showed it to could identify it. So essentially, he shot it.
So it is dead?
I don't know, but apparently it was cited.
More
We can go to
sightings.
Jersey now.
Well, no, because that's 1937. The next ones are like the sightings of 1909.
Okay, so it's dead.
I guess it's dead.
Oh,
But then it says during the
Get out of here. Okay.
But then it says during 1960s, tracks and noises heard from Mays Landing were claimed to be from the Jersey Devil.
Can you give us like a little taste of what you think that noise might sound like?
What?
Just what do
what
you
the Jersey
think
Devil-
the Jersey Devil sounds
I
like?
want to say it's like a.
Yeah, I want you to make the noise.
Yeah,
That's
make
what
the
I'm
noise.
asking. So you know what to listen for.
But anyway, I promised our intern here, Josh,
That was good.
that I would talk about the rake because. So this is another creepypasta. Josh, give us your best rake impression. Yeah, really loudly. Good.
Come here. Come do your impression.
Come do your rake impression.
That's disgusting.
I don't know if you can hear that. Oh shit, it's the rake! That's a pretty good rake
That was
impression.
really nice.
I think I just got sexually
So
assaulted.
anyway,
Oh my god.
this story
What
goes.
a goof.
I'm sorry for capping over yours, but I promised him I'd talk about this.
No, absolutely. Go for
This says during the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange human-like creature sparked brief local media. Little or no interest before apparent blackout was enacted. So essentially, what the rake is this humanoid-like creature with blacked out eyes, and it walks like a. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like
Is it
it's like
it's
mal.
with the- Is it quadruped? Okay.
It's malformed.
It's not quadruped because it has hands.
But anyway, here are some accounts.
Okay.
So it's you guys can look it up. It's fucking scary as shit. But anyway, here are some fun accounts. In 1980, a Spanish explorer apparently saw it. We have this one, a mariner's log that came from England, and they said, "We shall not return here again." At the request of the rake. So the rake identifies itself to these people.
It can speak.
I guess, but here's the one that's interesting. This lady came home from a trip from Niagara Falls with her family at the 4th of July. She's sleeping in her bed with her husband.
Evan, it's the rake right
It's
now.
the rake! I'll beat the rake's ass for distracting me. Get the fuck. Okay. Anyway.
so about the rake.
So she's sleeping in her bed with her husband, and her husband wakes up startled because he sees this malformed creature at the end of their bed, and it starts creeping on up, all creep-like, and it gets up,
creeping all up, all creep like.
and it gets up to this. He gets up to the husband's face, and he it's like, and then he fucking just runs off into the hallway towards the kids' room, and apparently this lady's daughter got murdered by this thing.
Holy
because
shit.
she walks out to the hallway, it's covered in blood, and she ran to her child, and the child was
God, I read this.
This
story.
is the most
Fuck,
famous
no,
one.
Yeah.
her child was she said to him before she died, "He is the rake." So he took her to the hospital, and neither of them survived on the way to the hospital.
The father or the?
Neither of the daughter
husband
and the daughter and the father both died.
Oh, I thought when you went, he literally just walked up and spooked the father.
It was just like. No.
But yeah,
I've read that.
Ooga booga.
It's crazy.
So is this also pretty much an invention of the internet?
I don't think so. I think
I
this
thought
is,
it was.
Was it?
Well, it
I
seems
don't
like not. 2003.
But I mean, we also have one from
the 1960.
But it's-
1691.
1691.
It's so easy to make up stuff like that.
Well, absolutely.
Well, that's where
Especially
you get into
connecting
the-
it with the old folklore.
That's where you get into the whole folklore thing. I mean, is it real? Or are we just making it up?
Can I see the picture again?
It's fucking weird shit.
I mean, if I could see more of its mouth, depending, I would think it might be a more modern rendition of the Wendigo.
Wendigo.
Yeah,
That's a good topic.
looks
I wanted
like-
to talk about that one
Because
too.
it has.
It has the same form and the same
The
gauntlet
Wendigo-
base.
The Wendigos are super interesting. They're like Indian. I forget which Indian.
I want to say Navajo.
It's not Navajo. It's something
Not
else.
Navajo?
I
Fuck
have
me.
it up here.
Skin-
Wow, it
Skinwalkers
looks
are
like you're the
Navajo.
asshole.
Skinwalkers are Navajo, but this one is if this will fucking load.
Don't get me started on
Um,
skinwalkers. I already did a
You
whole
already
thing
got
about
started on
this.
skinwalkers.
I don't like skinwalkers.
Well, Ty, can you talk? You can talk about Skinwalkers.
I don't
for a
want to
second.
talk about skinwalkers.
Well, I
okay,
mean,
fine, I will.
It's-
So whenever you hear something out in the woods and you're in night, oh boy, I will get started on skinwalkers. Whenever you're out in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden you hear something like a fucking frog, listen a little more closer. Listen. Think to yourself, is that a frog? Is that a person going? I don't know what a frog makes, but you know what I mean. Like, is that a person mimicking a frog?
Ribbit.
Maybe not a frog. Or
Usually it's a dog though.
you
isn't
hear,
it?
yeah, your dog goes out. This because I fucking love my dog. So think about I let my dogs out, right?
Your dogs love my crotch.
Okay, my dog. My dog has a propensity for tight spaces. He likes to stick his nose in, like, if you have blankets, he'll stick just his nose under the blanket. So
Put some beauty
crotches,
bug in those tight spaces.
crotches are natural.
All right,
For,
get
like,
back to
him.
the.
Okay, but like the concept of letting my dog out, right? And then something comes back, but it's not my dog. But it's sitting at me and it looks like my dog, but something's fucked up about it. And then all of a sudden it starts going like, wolf, wolf. But like it's
Come on, a
menacing,
skinwalker wouldn't
and
be
it's
that
just
big.
sitting there like being obvious. Well, a lot of the stories you read, it also will imitate a person. They don't often talk, and they often just like to sit there and fucking freak you out.
That's
Like
fun.
a lot of them, like people will be, I don't know why, but I've read a lot of stories of them about like people like hanging out in like a shed like with their friends because like, oh, we renovated their shed as like a hangout area. Okay, cool. But then like one of them has to pee or something, so they leave. And then another one has to pee like 2 minutes later, and they go out and they see the other one just standing there looking at them, and they touch them, and the thing they always say is that they're cold to the touch. And then like they go back, and the guy that they just saw and like touched was there, and they were like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "What do you mean? It never left." Like, and it's like, like that whole thing.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Like, why? Because they're like, they didn't. He touched him, right? He didn't kill him. He didn't do anything. He just stood out there, fucking smiled at him to creep him out, and now that person is permanently scarred. You know what I mean? Like, fuck you, Skinwalker.
I'm sure they do something to fuck people
I'm
up.
sure they try to kill
Maybe
you.
not now. Maybe
but
they just.
Maybe now they're just
Maybe
fucking
they're just mischievous. They just have a little funny side
little
to them.
prankster.
Yeah, why are you so scared of
Little
it?
goobs.
But does your dog come back though?
I don't
No,
know.
usually they
I
eat
would
the
assume that
dog.
you have to, because usually they have to use magical pelts to
Yeah.
transform into the animals. But I'm thinking if it wants to look at like your dog, I think it's got to get the pelt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But anyway,
it's-
I pulled up the Wendigos. So Wendigos are, if you succumb, apparently in like oh shit, where's the culture? But it's a certain Indian culture. If you succumb to cannibalism, you're essentially curse the devil and you become a Wendigo, and it's like a creature, which ironically, like it feeds off of people, but it's usually depicted as like a thin creature, and they're usually out in the woods and shit. But they're pretty fucky too. It's like anything that has to do with the woods and folklore, I fucking hate. Like
I think it's usually the woods too. because
Anatolian
it's-
tribes.
Anatolian tribes. But there's also a story apparently that one of the tribe members became a Wendigo to help. I forget what, but then he was banished because they were no longer needed him. But essentially, like the lore is like if you succumb to cannibalism, you're gonna become a Wendigo.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty popular one. Mothman's another pretty popular one.
Mhm.
Not much on that one because he's probably dead by now. But where was that one at? That was
I was South Carolina.
South Carolina.
South
Or North Carolina.
And people like thought that they saw like these glowing red eyes here and there, and like something with a giant wingspan. And apparently,
That's getting more into cryptid territory. Then.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I want to give up, but essentially there was a bridge that went down, and everybody associated it with the Mothman.
Yeah.
So
Well, they believe that he's like a foretelling being.
yeah.
That he shows up before disaster strikes.
That fucking door is. I don't like him.
I'm trying to look now. I for some reason lost. Here we go.
Bigfoot is another fun one, but I
He's
don't
a
want
cryptid.
a cryptid.
This is the one that I wanted to mention earlier. So you were discussing culture and how like a lot of times he's influenced the culture, and I mentioned his name is Bannock, and he is perhaps the most recognizable of all Eastern European folk creatures. He is weaved into many of the common traditions. So he's this mischievous spirit with a notorious reputation for causing trouble. He's often depicted as an old man with long, sharp claws, and he hangs out in the Banya stream baths that are all around Eastern Europe. And oftentimes people will leave him offerings, but they say that he possesses the power to predict the future, and he'll either like deliver a soft touch on your back if you have a good future, or if he has a bad future, he'll claw the fuck out of you.
What an asshole.
Yeah.
No shit, you're gonna have a bad
Because he's clawing the fuck
out of you.
But yeah, in Eastern Europe, a midwife is usually tasked with like sitting outside of the room and keeping him away. And then a lot of
Does he only do it with babies?
well, like because it's just like that's a moment of weakness.
Oh, okay.
So keeping him away because they don't want him clawing the fucking baby and giving it a bad future already. And then another one is at weddings, they will set up and a bunch of Banya steam baths, and they'll take the baths and then like leave him offerings, but like they're trying to like distract him with the baths because he likes the baths.
That's nice. I like that.
And it's a nice way to keep him away and protect the couples.
Yeah, I don't really like babies that much. So anything that fucking claws.
I like the like concept of
babies.
this little old man who's like pretty chill. Another example of like a neutral.
I love tradition like that.
Yeah.
That's definitely like a European thing in general with like leaving things offerings. No, I just anything that affects culture in such a way, I am a huge fan of.
I only have one more. And that's the Goat Man one.
Yes.
But Goat Man.
Kids died because of Goat Man.
Yeah, he was like this half man, half goat, axe wielding maniac that would like attack people and kill hurt them with his axe. Because
realistically, is this just a serial killer?
I don't know, but he was a scientist.
I have a funny story to tell about the Goat Man.
Here we go. So so some say Goat Man was a man who kept goats and went mad after teenagers killed his flock. Other people say that he was a result of a scientist conducting an experiment on a goat and something went horribly wrong. Or, if you want to fun, some man was like, hey, I'm going to fuck this goat. And then we get a hybrid.
It's the child?
Yeah. It's the child. But anyway, so he essentially goes after teenagers or young adults and wants to fucking kill people with an axe.
There's a legend that the Goat Man can mimic any sound he hears. So these kids were on a train track looking for a Goat Man, and they heard the sound of a train and they thought it was a Goat Man, but it turned out to be an actual train, and they got fucking deaded. The train hit them.
I'm sorry, but if you go out looking up for fucking things like Goat Man or the Jersey Devil and you die, that's your fucking fault.
Not only is it super dangerous to walk along train tracks, especially late at night or anything like that, but what happens if these things are real? On the off chance, you're just walking
out by an axe.
Yeah, you're just some asshole walking around with nothing but flashlights.
The fact that they thought it was the Goat Man and then decided to stay on the train tracks and not run the fuck out of there is what really gets me.
That's some white people
they were
shit.
It was and they're like, yeah, it's the Goat Man.
Let's go
let's stay on the train tracks right where we are.
Man, he can make a bright light too. It's what? That's that reminds me, to bring it back to the beginning, that reminds me of the Slenderman thing, where these stories actually a lot of times apparently kill people.
And it's not even the actual thing that kills them. It's people going out to look for these stories.
And I think in a way that spurs on the lore even more.
Yeah,
it does. It adds to it. So I think we're at a pretty good stop.
I think we are too. Be sure to give us your feedback. Let us know what else you want to hear.
Comment on our social media if you liked it, or what do you want to hear about it.
Follow us on Instagram.
Stoked.
Smash that motherfucking like button. Helps us out a lot.
Follow us on Instagram at Get Stoked Podcast.
And share it with your friends if you're enjoying it. Yeah.
We really want to hear from more people and
share
get feedback.
Share our shit. So
thank you guys so much for listening.
We'll see you next week on Get Stoked.
What? Did I miss something?
You're supposed to say it with us. Let's do it again. Get Stoked.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Get Stoked. Oh, we're not